Welcome everybody. Today we are going to focus on a day in the life of a remote service support agent and how the Waylay Digital Twin solution for Salesforce can actually help them to efficiently do their job with respect to troubleshooting connected assets. So why is this needed? Well, a lot of the assets that are connected these days can be located in inaccessible areas. For example, on top of a large building, an oil well that is in the middle of nowhere, or it could even be a restricted area like a clean room where you don't have access if you don't have the right security clearance and so forth. And recently, with the whole COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that a lot of end customers don't appreciate too much anymore that people that are coming from outside the company are coming on-prem to work on assets unless it's really necessary. So there's definitely a drive in the market to make assets connected, to be able to monitor assets remotely, and then of course to use that data to try to remotely troubleshoot any issues that are happening without having to actually dispatch somebody on site. So we're actually going to focus on that today. And specifically, we are going to present some new features that are coming in the version 2.0 of the Waylay Digital Twin app, which is pending in the next few days. Okay, so maybe a word about myself. So my name is Tom van Leeuwen. I lead the product management activities at Wele. I've been here at Wele for many years now, and I have a background in telecommunications. So I was building software products for remote troubleshooting and remote care in the telecommunications space. And here today you will see that we are actually applying some of those lessons learned into the connected assets and IoT market. Again, for those that joined a bit late, this recording will be made available after the meeting, and you all get an email with a link where you can find further information. All right, so first of all, for those of you that are not familiar with Waylay Digital Twin, what is it? We've been on the Salesforce App Exchange since the beginning of the year. And we've developed this as an application that you can install in a Salesforce org that basically provides a front end towards the Waylay rules engine. Right, it's specifically built for business users, meaning that it provides a completely no-code user interface for asset managers, field service technicians, call center agents, remote operations personnel to build connected asset monitoring rules and actually act upon any alarms that are generated by those rules. Throughout this presentation, I'll show you the Waylay Digital Twin app and how it interacts with the rest of the Salesforce ecosystem. More specifically, we're going to focus today on Salesforce Service Cloud and Salesforce Field Service. If you want to know more about all of the capabilities of the Waylay Digital Twin, feel free to go to waylay.io/digital twin, where you'll find quite a bit of information around its technical capabilities, but definitely also around the business benefits that it brings. As you will see throughout this presentation, Waylay Digital Twin is really an ideal solution to basically bring the OT domain and the IT domain with Salesforce closer together. Okay, first of all, I want to thank some of the partners that we work with for their excellent feedback on the product. We've actually took some of their suggestions already into account for our new release that is coming out in the next few days, and I'll be showing that off today. So here you can see an overview of all of the partners that we work with across the globe. If you're familiar with them, feel free to reach out to them and talk about Wele, or reach out to us, and we can definitely guide you to the right partner for your domain and your market. Okay, the Waylay Digital Twin app, how does it actually work? So I first want to introduce here the architecture once more, because it's important to understand how it works end to end for the presentation and the demos that I've been showing so far. On the left-hand side, you basically see a customer asset. So we assume that it is a connected asset. What does that mean? Well, it basically means that either this asset is sending its data directly to a cloud IoT platform, or it has been retrofitted with, for example, an industrial gateway that fetches telemetry from the asset and then basically packages up and send that data to the cloud. So it can be a direct cloud connection or an indirect cloud connection. The Waylay Digital Twin solution relies on an IoT platform that you already have. It could be, for example, AWS IoT Cloud or Azure IoT Hub, but we support many other IoT platforms out there. Typically, the way that we explain it is that we assume that you have some sort of connect and collect strategy, meaning that you have connected assets and you have a way to collect telemetry from those assets, either through one of the big cloud providers, or you've built your own proprietary solution for data collection. But the point is that the Waylay solution taps into that data stream. So the Waylay Digital Twin solution consists of two parts. The top part lives within Salesforce. It's an application that you can install via the Salesforce App Exchange. It's known as an ISV app, where it basically provides a front end for, I would say, programming the off-core Waylay engine. So the off-core Waylay engine is either hosted by us or can run in your cloud platform, but it's a very scalable and actually unique rule engine that has been designed for very efficient IoT data processing, IoT data pattern matching, and ultimately what it does is it will look for certain patterns and generate back what is known as Waylay alarms into the Salesforce environment. So the app itself is your gateway to actually programming that Waylay engine. What does that mean? Well, as you will see in the demonstration, we will use the app to create rules using a no-code user interface, and then those rules are pushed down onto the core Waylay platform that will then autonomously execute those rules and the conditions that it contains. It will apply to the IoT data that is coming in. Okay, so we support streaming data, also batch data. All of that is supported, but it's in fact a hidden component, and all of the interaction with the Waylay engine happens through the app. Obviously, one of the benefits of the Salesforce ecosystem is that once the IoT data analysis has been done and certain alarms or diagnostics test results have been produced, you can easily apply business logic to that, to those records. Okay, and that is something I'll show today as well, where we will leverage Salesforce flows to take into account the results produced by the Waylay engine and create actions. Right, those actions could be creating a case automatically, or sending notifications to end customers, and so forth. Okay, so we leverage the strength of the Salesforce platforms when it comes to the business logic, but we offload the raw IoT data processing to a very efficient engine, which is what what Waylay has been offering for a while now on the market. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to the demo. So I'll take you through a particular scenario today. And the scenario that I want to focus on is a customer called Smart Factory Inc. And this customer has multiple construction sites that are using in those construction sites backup generators of us, right? So we're basically a customer or a company that leases backup generators to, for example, construction companies like Smart Factory Inc. They use it on different production sites, and these backup generators are monitored constantly and are basically, the Waylay engine is basically processing that data. So, as discussed in the beginning of the presentation, we're going to focus today on a number of different personas, specifically the remote help desk agent or service agent or remote field tech agent. It's pretty much the same story. So let me dive into this view of a remote service agent. So typically, remote service agents, they work on cases. So what you see here on the screen is the service console that they work in. So this is a feature of Salesforce itself. And what you see here is a case around an overheating issue that is happening with one of the backup generators called Engine Y. This case was actually proactively created. So what does that mean? It basically means that we actually had a predictive preventive rule running that analyzes data coming from our backup generator, Engine Y, and in particularly focusing here on its temperature readings. And we see that the asset here is dangerously is about to overheat, right? So obviously this situation cannot persist. Otherwise, the backup generator will go down. So what you see here on the left-hand side is that the preventive care ticket that was created by the Waylay Digital Twin solution indicates that the asset is about to overheat and that an urgent maintenance activity is needed to clean the filter. Right. Now, let's assume that I'm a remote service agent who is working on this preventive and predictive case, and I'm in touch with a local person that is of my customer here, Smart Factory Inc. That basically is tasked to clean that filter. Okay, and he's kind of claiming that he cleaned that filter. And he's basically asking the remote service agent to validate whether his maintenance activities have solved the problem. So what we have added here to the case management interface is a flow execution widget that is going to launch a Waylay Diagnostics test. Okay, so this Waylay Diagnostics test is something that was pre-created by the asset manager. I'll come back to that in a minute once we've seen how it works. But basically, what we are offering here is a very efficient user interface for the remote service agent to launch this diagnostics test that will analyze the data coming from this connected asset and come up with recommendations if anything fails here. Okay, so how does it work? Well, the remote service agent will be taken through a number of different steps to launch this diagnostics test. So let's do that. So when I click next here, I'm presented with a a list of options that I can take. I can execute the default health check, or I can execute some advanced tests that are focusing on particular data or particular use cases. But let's now take, for example, the generic asset health check, which is a quick test to see whether this asset and the maintenance activity that just happened is okay. Okay, so let's click next. So what's going to happen right now is we will take the predefined Waylay Diagnostics test, the generic asset health test. We will launch it on the core Wele platform. It will look for the latest data that was received by the asset after the maintenance activity, and will actually validate whether the maintenance was successful or not. Okay, so when I click next here, what is going to happen is I'm basically going to check a number of different parameters. It could be one, it could be multiple ones. And here we see a success message, meaning that all the parameters pretty much look okay, all tests have passed, and the maintenance activity was successful. Okay, we get some additional information around the asset warranty status. It's currently active, and the service entitlement as well. So this specific customer has in his service contract 3 free component replacements available. Already 1 component replacement was done in the past, and he has still 2 entitlements left. It's not needed here. The tests all have been successful, which basically means that as of now, this case can be closed, and we can actually, we basically validated that this issue was fixed. Okay. So what does it actually do behind the scenes? Well, let's have a look at our engine Y here. So what happened actually is that if we go to the asset page here, like I said, we're dealing with a backup generator for a particular location. It's part of this Customer Smart Factory Inc. And you basically see here on the right-hand side the diagnostics tests that have been executed. Okay, so these diagnostics tests were just launched. Okay, so you have a complete overview of all the diagnostics tests for each asset available and their success or failure state. Okay, you also have the ability to drill down into the individual parameters of this connected asset. So, for example, here you see a historical graph of the oil level. But for example, if I go to temperature for the last hour, I can just refresh this, and I'm getting here the latest temperature readings from our engine. So clearly, you see here that the asset is no longer overheating. Okay, the temperature has dropped significantly. By the way that this works is that we do an API call towards the Wele platform, and we fetch the latest data for the different parameters of our Waylay Digital Twin here, which basically models the sensor that is inside the backup generator. So this raw data is not sent to Salesforce, because that would overload the Salesforce database. But as you can see, the remote service agent here has complete visibility into the different parameters of the asset. It can look at past history. It can look at the current values. It can look at the complete history of diagnostics tests and so forth. Okay, so this is quite efficient from a remote service agent point of view, because it's all within the Salesforce experience, right? He doesn't have to go and log into some sort of OT tool where he has to enter his own credentials again and then go to a completely different user interface, look up the asset, and look at the data over there. And that is what is known in the industry as the swivel chair problem, that you have to jump from one screen to the other. Here, it's all embedded within the service console that the agent is using, which obviously has the benefit of having a consistent user experience, but even more that you can actually abstract away a lot of complexity related to these to these connected assets away from the help desk agent, such that the level of training that this help desk or service agent needs can be much less, right? Using these diagnostics tests, you can abstract away the complexities of having to look at the raw data and having to look at the data patterns for making decisions on what is now the best next action. Okay, so in that sense, it's a very efficient way of quickly validating remote maintenance activities. So what I just showed you is a happy path scenario, right? Everything was fine. The data coming back after the diagnostics test was actually successful. But obviously, you can have scenarios where there's a failure, right? So let's take, for example, another scenario here, where, for example, I'm going to execute now a battery integrity test. So let's assume there might be something wrong with the battery of this backup generator. So let's execute that same test here. In this case, the diagnostic test actually failed. So here again, you actually see a failure message of that diagnostics test. In this case, the battery has actually been degrading over time and should be replaced. Okay, so this is actually the recommendation that is shown here to the service agent. And again, here you can see that this customer specifically is still entitlement for 2 free component replacements. So the action after this one is to actually launch a work order to actually replace the battery, either send it to the customer or to basically bring it along with the next maintenance visit. Okay. Now, let me talk about another scenario that can happen. Here, it's another failure scenario where I have an asset that is no longer reporting data. Okay, so here I have another case that could have come in not proactively, but maybe somebody that called the help desk and is basically complaining that in his Experience Cloud dashboard, he's no longer seeing his asset data, right? So he called the help desk, and the help desk agent created this specific case that there's no more data in his dashboard since the 5th of July. So what we're going to do here is we're basically dealing with a scenario where, for example, there is a retrofitted gateway of some sort, an industrial gateway that, for example, uses a 4G connection to report the asset data back to the cloud. Well, so the most likely issue with the fact that there's no new data is that connectivity was down. Right? So here again, we are launching the diagnostic tests. In this case, again, we're executing the asset health check, but it will fail because there was no data received in the last 15 minutes here. So clearly here, the recommendation is to basically reset the industrial gateway and basically make sure that, for example, ask the user to check whether the LEDs on the industrial gateway are in the green, indicating that there's an active 4G connection. So this is the way that you can actually quickly validate what is actually wrong. Okay, so so this is basically what we're offering now in from a service console perspective. Now, how do you create actually these Waylay Diagnostics tests? Well, that is something that we can actually allow an asset manager to do, and he doesn't require any coding experience in order to do that. So let me actually show you how that can be realized. Well, it's actually quite simple. As an asset manager, you can go to the Waylay Digital Twin app and, for example, create a rule template. And the Waylay Digital Twin app comes with some pre-built use cases. A conditional rule is basically a basic building block that allows you to define a predictive use case that is going to look at streaming incoming data, for example, around temperature, and is going to compare that against the threshold. And if a threshold is reached, we're going to raise an alarm back into Salesforce. A connectivity gap detection is all about detecting unplanned downtime. So that's basically going to check whether there was no data received by your asset. Again, this is a predictive preventive care type of use case where a Waylay alarm will be raised if the asset, for example, hasn't reported any data for the last hour or the last 2 days, for example. That's all configurable. Statistical anomaly detection is again a type of predictive preventive use case where you can use a no-code interface to define a condition that looks, for example, at the last 5 samples that have been received and check whether the average temperature or pressure is higher than a certain threshold. Okay. And out of range detection is also a very popular use case, specifically for monitoring parameters that have to be stable. Okay, so we have some customers using that to, for example, monitor whether an asset is, whether a warning alarm has to be raised or a contract breach alarm has to be raised, right? So certain parameters are allowed to go a little bit out of range, but if they're like extremely out of range, then an immediate emergency alarm has to be generated in order to indicate that there's definitely a contractual breach there. So an out of range use case detection is often used for such rules. And the conditional diagnostics test is what we are focusing here today. So let me pick this as a use case. So what do you get as an asset manager? You can define your specific diagnostics test that you want to create. So, for example, let's say we want to define a pressure health check. You define a success description. Pressure is okay, for example. A failure description, when the condition will not be met. Typically, you encode here, what is the recommended action as well when this condition is not met. So pressure is not good, for example, or is not allowed, or pressure is not good, or pressure is too high. Let's use that. Is too high. Check for clogging, for example, right? That could mean that there's clogging going on, or pressure could also be too low, and it could indicate that there's like a leak somewhere in the pipes. So you can also assign a diagnostics priority, for example, low or medium. And what you do is you basically define the template in a generic way. So you define it on the Waylay Digital Twin type. So you select the asset type that you want to apply this rule to. You, for example, use the parameter, in this case, pressure, and you can define a function on it if you want to. But let's say, hey, we're focusing on something simple here, and say we want to let this diagnostics test fail when the pressure is too high, and so it's everything is good if the pressure is like less than, I don't know, 15 megapascal, for example. Okay. So so when you save this template, it's actually saved as a generic rule that you can apply to any asset that is of the right Waylay Digital Twin type. Okay. So here in the overview of all the Waylay rule templates, we get a list of all the different templates that have been created before. And here on top, you see the asset health check that I executed in the beginning of the presentation. So let's have a look at how that actually looks like. So if I open it here, what you get back is, as you actually can see, a no-code user interface similar to the one that I showed earlier, where I actually have multiple conditions. So here you see that I'm checking oil level, I'm checking error levels, whether they are they're good, I'm checking pressure, and so forth. So you can actually chain multiple conditions in your asset health check, or you can check for one specific condition. So for example, here the oil level check. So if you look at that, for example, this is a single parameter check that you can execute. So you have freedom to define complex diagnostics tests, or you can define very simple ones that you then group together and execute them one by one. So that's also possible. You're free to choose there. But what they all have in common is that one, these diagnostics tests can be defined using no code whatsoever. So it's just a form that you fill in. You don't have to get any training to be able to use this user interface. And you have quite some flexibility there to define your own rules. You don't need IT to build this logic. All of the rule logic is actually automatically generated based on what is defined here and is then pushed onto the core Wele platform. So that's quite a unique feature of our rules engine. Okay. All right, so this is how you actually create these rule templates. Now, obviously, you want to be able to execute them. So what you saw earlier in the user interface here is actually a flow that is being executed. So as part of the Waylay Digital Twin app, we actually ship what we call an SDK, a software development kit of different invocable methods for those people that are actually familiar with Salesforce lingo, that allows you to launch diagnostics tests and get back results and so forth. So let's have a look at how this flow actually looks like and how I've kind of constructed this flow. It's actually quite simple. So when you basically start the flow, you fetch the case information, you get the asset information, and then you kick off the different screens. So here in this screen, I'm actually listing the default health check and the advanced tests that are available. So that is being presented here. Then I'm actually here launching this test. Okay, so here in fact we are actually launching the diagnostics test. So how does that work? Well, when you go here and add an action, you will see that here in the action list we've made available a number of Waylay methods that are callable. So this is quite handy if you want to integrate some of the Waylay Digital Twin app capabilities in your own user UI. In this case, a flow, you can actually call these different functions yourself without having, and that basically prevents the the user, the help desk agent that is basically using this type of interface. He doesn't need to go to the Waylay app itself. He can stay within his user interface. And these methods, they can basically be called from anywhere. Whether your flow is executed from the service console, or whether the flow is executed from the field service app, for example, or is executed from a Experience Cloud dashboard. All of that is possible with the SDK that we provide. Okay. So once the test is launched, specifically the diagnostics tests are one-time tests that are executed on the core Waylay platform. That basically mean that they look at the last sample that was received, execute the logic, generate a Waylay diagnostics result, and then end, right? So they are not long-running rules. They execute immediately based on the last data. And here we basically get the results back. So when the rule executes, it will generate Waylay diagnostics tests. And here we basically fetch the last diagnostics test result. Here we check which rule we execute. We match that. We also look for which asset we executed this diagnostics test, and we basically pick that the last diagnostics test record and show the results to the end user. Right. So here you have a complete overview of all the diagnostics tests all the diagnostics test results that have been achieved for all the assets here. So as you can see, you have a complete log of all the tests that have been executed. You know who has executed them. You know when they were executed. You know the success, either failure or success. You also know which rule template is this associated with. So you can you can create all sorts of reports from this in order, for example, to optimize your Waylay diagnostics tests, right? So if you see that certain diagnostics tests are not that efficient, or that the help desk agent still is struggling with dealing with the outcome of the results, meaning that the calls are taking a little bit longer than expected, you can do also all that analysis to optimize these tests, and you can have like a continuous optimization cycle to define the ultimate asset health check, depending on the type of asset, of course. Okay. So so let's get back at the presentation. So put this back into presentation mode. So that, as I've said, the release 2.0 of the Waylay Digital Twin app is pending. So it will soon be available on the App Exchange. I suspect that will happen in the next few days. And we focus today mainly on the top feature, which is Waylay diagnostics tests, which can really help you to optimize your remote service agents by abstracting away the analysis of the connected asset data. So that analysis is pretty much done by diagnostics test rules that you define using the Waylay Digital Twin app. So in that sense, you can save quite a bit of time when analyzing assets and issues that are happening with assets when cases are being created. So in that sense, we can help both field service agents, remote help desk agents, and even remote operating teams to troubleshoot connected assets much more efficiently than having to go into a separate tool, analyze the raw data, or use a completely different user interface to troubleshoot a particular asset. So I think what we are offering here is of great benefit to any customer that is using Salesforce Service Cloud or Salesforce Field Service. There are other features in this release that I haven't talked about today, which are going to be addressed either by blog posts or future webinars. The first one that I haven't talked today is the ability to leverage custom rules and machine learning on the core Wele platform, and how to expose that to business users. So it's basically a new way on how business users can efficiently work together with domain and data experts using the Waylay Digital Twin solution. So we'll talk about that much more in future webinars. And last but not least is support for Experience Cloud. This was in high demand from some of our partners. So Experience Cloud is quite hot. It used to be called Community Cloud in Salesforce, but it allows you to expose a portal to end customers, right? And that portal can be a portal that you use to, for example, show the asset performance history, the current asset performance, but also the ability to, for example, execute diagnostics tests and let end customers in a self-service way self-troubleshoot any connected asset issue. So here again, the capabilities that we show today in this webinar are of very much use to Experience Cloud dashboards and the ability to expose self-service dashboards to end customers as well. So I would say if you want to know more about these features, we're always willing to provide you with a personal demo. We've been doing that quite a lot in the last couple of months. It's no issue whatsoever. So we can tailor the discussion a little bit towards your specific domain. We have customers that are in the building automation domain. We have customers that are in discrete manufacturing. We have customers that are in the entertainment business. We even have customers that are in the oil and gas business. So whatever domain you're active in, I'm pretty sure we have use cases available that apply to you and where we can actually show the benefits of the Waylay Digital Twin solution. We also offer the ability to do a trial. We try to keep it short. The setup of the Waylay Digital Twin is really half an hour of work in your Salesforce environment. And I mean that literally. So it's something that can be set up extremely fast, and it's also very easy to use. Like you have seen, it doesn't require any coding experience whatsoever. So there's like zero learning curve to be able to use it. The only dependency is that you have a data collection already in place, and that the Waylay engine can subscribe to that data. But once you have that, it's pretty much easy peasy to set it up, and you can play around with it. So feel free to reach out to us, either to me, Tom at waylay.io directly, or to our digital twin at waylay.io email address, and it will definitely end up with the right people. So don't hesitate. We're here to help. If you have a particular end customer in mind, or you want to test it out in your environment, we are here to help. All right, that's it for today. So let's have a look at some of the questions I see here in the Q&A section. All right, so I have a question from Mark Schmidt. Hi, Tom. Have you integrated with a solution where the IoT data is driving a billing solution, usage-based pricing? So yes, indeed. So I've been focusing today quite a bit on technical connectivity troubleshooting, but the Waylay Digital Twin app also allows you to create, for example, opportunity records based on any Waylay alarms that you have defined. So a typical use case. So let me see if I have something up and running here. If not, then I can quickly create one. So a typical use case is where you define a conditional rule where you're using, for example, parameters like operating cycles as a parameter to check and compare with, for example, a service contract that this customer has. So let's assume we're dealing with a customer that is allowed to use our backup generator for 10,000 operating cycles, or 10,000 device hours, whatever the parameter that is reporting the usage of the asset may be. So what you can do is actually you can define a rule here that basically says if the latest value of the operating cycles is greater than 10,000, for example, right? Indicating it has been used for 10,000 hours. Then, well, actually, you want to do it a bit sooner, right? Let's say 9,000 hours. That you actually generate a Waylay alarm. Okay. So, so the use case would be, for example, check contractual limits, and that would be the use case. The alarm type is, for example, usage alarm, and the description is like, this asset is close to its contractual. So this its contractual limits, and the recommendation could be reach out to renew contract. Right. So this is kind of an upselling use case, so that you can then apply to your assets. So let's do that. So we have here our customer, Smart Factory Inc. Let's use our rule, and then we get back a list of assets where we can apply it to. So I'll apply it to the first one, and now it's kind of running. So so basically it will afterwards generate alarms. Probably hasn't generated any alarms just yet, but here we get an overview of all the alarms that have been generated. And then what you can do, and this is the part where obviously it becomes custom from customer to customer, is to create a flow on the, for example, a record triggered flow. Whenever a Waylay alarm has been generated of the type usage alarm, to, for example, create an opportunity record. Okay, so this is pretty trivial use case. So let's quickly create this. So new flow, and so the flow builder opens. So what you do is you select a record triggered flow. So let's use this. And what you do is the condition when you are going to trigger this flow is a Waylay alarm. Waylay alarm. There we go. Waylay alarm. You define the condition, and the condition is that the type. There we go. The type equals, for example, usage alarm. You say done, and then the rest of your flow starts. Where, for example, you create an opportunity record. Create opportunity record, for example, and then you specify here. It actually no. So here, opportunity. There we go. And then you fill in the opportunity fields based on the Waylay alarm details that are in there, right? So I guess you get the idea. So yeah, even though I focused a lot on technical troubleshooting, I mean these use cases are pretty trivial for us. But as you can imagine, there are also use cases outside the context of service support. In this case here, we're focusing more on contract upselling and upselling new or deal basically getting more money out of your end customer, pretty much, right? So based on the usage information that you collect from your asset. Okay, I don't see any further questions. So if any questions would pop up, feel free to send it to us. And like I said, if you have a desire for some deeper dive, I'd be happy to help. Well, the entire team will be happy to help. And we're definitely open for business if you want to do a trial, for example, of the app. Like I said, the app can be installed in a sandbox environment, and it can be set up in a very, very short time. So you don't need a lot of resources and a lot of time to set everything up. So that's a major advantage. Okay, thanks for listening. For those that couldn't make it to the call, happy to talk to you today. I hope you have a great day, and stay tuned for more exciting news in the future from Wele. Bye-bye.